The year is 1853. A man named Jonathan Ashworth walks up to a ticket booth. He's in Ohio, middle of nowhere, farmland in every direction, but in front of him is a roller coaster. Think about that for a second. 1853. No electricity anywhere on Earth, no motors, no engines that could power a theme park. Edison won't invent the light bulb for another 26 years, but Jonathan Ashworth is about to ride a roller coaster at night, with lights blazing all around him, lights that don't flicker. How is that possible? The ticket Ashworth pays 10 cents. He gets a small paper ticket. He keeps it. His family still has it. 170 years later, the ticket says Lake Meridian Pleasure Gardens, established 1847, illuminated nightly. Illuminated nightly in 1847. What's illuminating it? Gas lamps existed back then. Candles existed. Oil lamps existed. But Ashworth's diary says something strange. He writes, "The lights were not flame. They were steady and white. They hummed. Steady, white, humming. Flames don't hum. Candles don't hum. Oil lamps don't hum. You know what hums? Electricity." Chamza, the ride. Ashworth gets in line for the roller coaster. It's called the Lightning Express. Weird name for 1853. Lightning. Electricity. He watches the cars go up the first hill. No horses pulling them. No steam engine pushing them. No ropes. No chains he can see. The cars just glide up. Smooth. Silent. Then they drop. Ashworth writes, "Faster than any carriage I have known. The women screamed. The men gripped the rails. I felt my stomach rise into my throat." He rides it 6 times. After his third ride, he asks a park worker, "How does it work?" The worker laughs. "Magnets," the worker says. "The whole thing runs on magnets." Magnets. In 1853, commercial magnetic propulsion for amusement rides wasn't developed until the 1990s, but this worker says it like it's obvious, like everyone knows. What did they know in 1853 that we had to rediscover 140 years later? The other rides. Ashworth doesn't just ride the coaster. His diary describes other attractions. A spinning wheel that holds 30 people. It rotates faster than a man can run and pins riders to the outer wall. That sounds like a gravitron. Those weren't invented until the 1980s. A boat ride through illuminated caverns where the boats moved without oars or poles. Self-propelled boats, underground, with electric-style lighting. A tower that lifts guests 200 feet into the air for panoramic views. The first Ferris wheel wasn't built until 1893. That's 40 years later. But Ashworth rode something like it in 1853. How? Free. The lights. Ashworth keeps coming back to the lights. They lined every pathway. They surrounded every attraction. They turned night into day. He tries to examine one up close. "I could not determine the source of the light. There was no flame, no oil reservoir, no wick, just a glass bulb that glowed. A glass bulb that glowed." In 1853, Edison's light bulb patent was filed in 1879. That's 26 years later. Either Ashworth is lying, or someone had working light bulbs before Edison. But that's not even the strangest part. Ashworth writes, "I touched the glass. It was cool, not hot like a lamp. Cool light. Incandescent bulbs burn hot. That's how they work. The filament heats up until it glows. Cool light suggests something different. LED style, fluorescent style. Technology that shouldn't exist for another 100 years. What was lighting? Lake Meridian Pleasure Gardens. The sound. There's another detail in Ashworth's diary I haven't mentioned yet. The sound, or the lack of it. He writes, "The park was busy, hundreds of people, but beneath the laughter and screams, there was a deeper sound, a low hum. Constant, coming from everywhere and nowhere. A hum. He noticed it most when he stood near the ride machinery. I placed my hand on the rail of the Lightning Express loading platform. I could feel it vibrating. A steady pulse, like a heartbeat. Vibration, pulsing, humming. You know what creates that? Alternating current, AC motors, transformers, 60-cycle hum. That's the sound electrical equipment makes." Ashworth didn't know what he was hearing. He had no framework for it, but he described it perfectly. The operator. One more story from the diary. On his 6th ride, Ashworth sat near the front of the coaster car. He watched the operator closely. The man stood at a panel of levers and switches. He wore thick gloves. He moved the controls with great care, as if handling something dangerous. Thick gloves, careful handling, something dangerous. What's dangerous about operating a gravity coaster? Nothing, but electrical switches, high voltage controls. Those are dangerous. Those require protection. The operator treated his controls like they could kill him. In 1853, no one should have known to be afraid of a control panel, unless the controls carried. Real power. The photographs. Ashworth's diary isn't the only evidence. In 2007, a collector in Ohio named Martin Caldwell bought a box of old photographs at an estate sale. He paid $40 for the whole box, thought they might be worth something. Inside were 23 photographs of amusement parks, cabinet cards, and tintypes, dated between 1848 and 1869. Parks with roller coasters, parks with Ferris wheel type structures, parks with spinning rides and boat rides, and what looks like an early version of bumper cars, all before electricity was commercially available, all showing technology that shouldn't exist. Caldwell posted the photos online. They went viral in alternative history circles. Then something strange happened. Bas, the offer. 3 weeks after posting the photos, Caldwell got a letter. No return address. Typed. Professional. The letter offered $50,000 for the photographs. Cash. Immediate. Caldwell thought it was a joke. He ignored it. A week later, he got another letter. Same format. $75,000. He ignored that too. Then someone knocked on his door. A man in a suit said he represented private collectors. The man offered $100,000 cash right now for the box of photos. Caldwell said no. He was suspicious now. Why would anyone pay that much? The man left. Polite. Didn't argue. 4 days later, Caldwell's house was broken into. Nothing was taken. Not his TV, not his cash, not his laptop, just the box of photographs. He still has the scans, low resolution, posted online years ago, but the originals are gone. Who pays $100,000 for fake photos? Who breaks into a house for pictures of old amusement parks? Unless the photos aren't fake, unless they show something that wasn't supposed to survive. The scans. Caldwell still has digital scans of the photographs. Low resolution. He posted them years ago. I've studied those scans. Most are too blurry to see details. The copying process degraded them, but a few are clear. Enough. One shows a structure that looks like a Ferris wheel. Wooden frame. Multiple carriages. At least 80 feet tall based on the people standing nearby. The tintype is dated 1852. The first Ferris wheel was built in 1893, 41 years later. Another scan shows what appears to be a roller coaster. 3 hills, a loading platform, cars on the track, dated 1855. The first roller coaster with a continuous track was built in 1885, 30 years later. A third scan shows a building with large windows. Inside the windows, you can see lights, dozens of them, bright, uniform. Dated 1858. The first commercial electric lighting wasn't until the 1880s. Either every date on these photographs is wrong, or the photographs show technology that shouldn't exist. Who fakes 23 photographs with consistent aging, consistent chemical processes, and consistent historical details? Who does that and then sells them at an estate sale for $40? The photos were real, and someone wanted them gone. The park. Let's go back to Lake Meridian Pleasure Gardens. Based on newspaper advertisements from the 1840s and 1850s, the park had a roller coaster called the Lightning Express, a spinning ride called the Centrifuge, a boat ride through illuminated underground caverns, a viewing tower that rose 200 feet above the lake, a hall of wonders featuring mechanical marvels, a palace of light where day becomes night and night becomes day. That's a full amusement park, comparable to anything built in the early 1900s, but it was operating in 1847, 48 years before the first commercial American amusement park at Coney Island. Where did it come from? The Free, the owner. The park was built by a man named Cornelius Vance. I've tried to find out everything I can about Cornelius Vance. There's almost nothing. He appears in records starting in 1845. He purchases 200 acres of land near a small lake in rural Ohio. No record of where he came from. No record of where he got his money. No record of any previous business. He just appears, buys land, starts building. The park opens in 1847. Less than 2 years of construction. For 24 years it operates. Newspapers mention it occasionally. Visitors write about it. It seems successful. Then, in 1871, Cornelius Vance vanishes. One day he's running the park. The next day he's gone. No death record. No bankruptcy filing. No announcement. He just disappears. What happened to Cornelius Vance? The closure. After Vance disappears, the park closes immediately. Not gradually. Immediately. Workers show up one morning and find the gates locked. A sign says, "Closed until further notice." Further notice never comes. Within months, the land is sold. The new owners aren't local. Nobody knows who they are. And then the demolition begins. Every building torn down. Every ride dismantled. Every piece of equipment hauled away. By 1875, there's nothing left. No structures, no foundations, nothing. But they didn't stop there. They drained the lake. Lake Meridian was a natural lake, maybe 50 acres. It had been there forever. The new owners drained it, filled in the basin, leveled the ground. By 1880, you couldn't tell there had ever been a lake there, or a park, or anything. Who does that? Who drains a lake to hide an amusement park? The workers. In 1923, A local historian named Harold Phelps published a small book called Memories of Old Ohio. One chapter is about Lake Meridian. Phelps was old by then, but he'd interviewed people who remembered the park from childhood, people whose parents had worked there. The workers had told their children things, strange things. One woman said her father described machines that ran themselves. One man said his mother talked about lights that never needed oil. One woman said her grandmother called the owner the man who knew things nobody should know. Phelps pushed for details. Nobody could explain. The memories were fragments, second-hand, faded by time. But everyone agreed on something. The park wasn't normal. The workers knew it, and everyone was afraid to talk about it. Even decades later, the fear was still there. The other parks. Here's where it gets bigger. Lake Meridian wasn't alone. I found references to at least 7 other parks built before 1860, before commercial electricity, before internal combustion engines. Silver Grove in Kentucky, opened 1851. Pleasant Hill in Pennsylvania, opened 1854. Mirror Lake in New York, opened 1849. Cascade Gardens in Massachusetts, opened 1852. Sunset Pavilion in New Jersey, opened 1856. Golden Gate Pleasure Grounds in California, opened 1858. Starlight Park in Illinois, opened 1853. 7 parks, different states, different owners, but the same features. Mechanical rides, night illumination, technology that shouldn't exist, and all 7 closed between 1865 and 1875. All 7 were demolished completely, all 7 left almost. No trace. Let me tell you about 2 of them specifically. Mirror Lake, Mirror Lake. Pleasure Gardens opened in upstate New York in 1849. According to advertisements, it featured aquatic wonders, including boats that glide without oars across the mirror surface, self-propelled boats, in 1849. A visitor in 1856 wrote to a newspaper, "The boats move as if pushed by invisible hands. They speed up and slow down at will. They navigate around other boats without collision." Without collision. Navigate around other boats. That sounds like some kind of guidance system. Automated navigation. In 1856, Mirror Lake closed in 1868. The new owners filled in the lake with rubble. They built a factory on top of it. The factory burned down in 1901. The land has been empty ever since. No one has ever excavated it. Sunset Pavilion. Sunset Pavilion in New Jersey opened in 1856. Its main attraction was something called the Celestial Wheel, a newspaper description, a wheel of iron and wood, 150 feet in diameter, lifting passengers to heaven and returning them to earth, spinning constantly from dusk until midnight. 150 feet, spinning constantly, for 6 hours every night. That requires enormous power, continuous power, not a hand crank, not animal power, something else. Sunset Pavilion closed in 1872. The wheel was dismantled by specialists from Philadelphia. No one knows who the specialists were or where they took the wheel. The land was sold to a railroad company. They built a switching yard on it. The wheel was never seen again. No, the pattern. What do you have to hide to erase something that completely? The fires. 3 of the parks burned down. Silver Grove in Kentucky burned in 1869. The fire started at night. By morning, everything was gone. Cascade Gardens in Massachusetts burned in 1871. Same pattern. Night fire. Total destruction. Starlight Park in Illinois burned in 1873. Night fire. Nothing left. 3 parks, 3 fires, all at night, all complete destruction. The newspapers called them tragic accidents, but here's what's strange. All 3 fires happened within months of the parks announcing they would close. Silver Grove announced closure in early 1869. Burned 3 months later. Cascade Gardens announced closure in spring 1871. Burned that summer. Starlight Park announced closure in fall 1873. Burned before winter. Coincidence? Or did someone want to make sure nothing was left to examine? The newspaper. In 1854, A newspaper in Ohio published a strange complaint. Residents near Lake Meridian reported that their compasses weren't working right. The newspaper wrote, "Several farmers have noted that compass readings within a mile of the pleasure gardens are unreliable. Needles spin or point in wrong directions." Compass disturbances. What causes compass disturbances? Magnetic fields, strong ones. The Earth's magnetic field is weak. It takes something powerful to override it. Was something at Lake Meridian generating powerful magnetic fields? The newspaper doesn't investigate. It just notes the complaint and moves on. But it's a detail that stuck with me. If the rides really ran on magnets, there would be magnetic fields. Strong ones, detectable ones. That newspaper complaint might be accidental evidence of exactly what Ashworth's diary describes. Dachaf, the transition. Okay, let me slow down. I've been throwing a lot at you. Stories, claims, mysteries. Let me step back and talk about what we actually know versus what we're guessing, because there's a difference, and I want to be honest about it. What we know. We know Jonathan Ashworth's diary exists. His family has it. The handwriting and paper have been dated to the 1850s. We know newspaper advertisements for Lake Meridian exist. They're in archived papers from Ohio. We know the photographs existed. Multiple people saw them before they were stolen. We know the land. Where Lake Meridian stood is now empty. No lake, no structures, nothing. We know similar parks were mentioned in newspapers across the country in the 1850s. We know most of those parks were demolished completely. These are facts, documented, verifiable. What we don't know. We don't know what powered the rides. We don't know what made the lights work. We don't know who Cornelius Vance really was. We don't know where he went. We don't know who bought the photographs. We don't know why the parks were demolished so completely. We don't know if the descriptions in the diaries are accurate or exaggerated. These are mysteries, unsolved. The skeptical view. Let me present the skeptical explanation. Because it deserves a hearing. Maybe the rides were simpler than the diaries describe. A roller coaster in 1853 might have been a gravity-powered slide. Carts roll down a hill. That's it. No magnets needed. The lights might have been gas lamps or calcium lights. Limelight was used in theatres in the 1850s. It's bright and steady. The spinning ride might have been hand-powered or animal-powered. Workers turning a crank out of sight. Memory exaggerates. A 50-foot tower becomes 200 feet after enough retellings. A bright gas lamp becomes electric light when you're writing decades later. This is all possible, maybe even likely. The diaries and newspapers prove the parks existed. They don't prove the parks had impossible technology. I acknowledge this. The problems with skepticism. But there are problems with the skeptical view. Problem 1. The descriptions are too specific. Ashworth doesn't just say, there were lights. He says they hummed. He says they were cool to the touch. He says they had no flame or wick. If he saw gas lamps, why describe them that way? Gas lamps are hot. They have visible flames. They don't hum. Problem 2. The compass disturbances. That newspaper report from 1854 mentions compass problems near the park. What's causing that? Gas lamps don't affect compasses. Gravity coasters don't affect compasses. Strong magnetic fields affect compasses. Problem 3. The demolitions. If these were simple parks with simple technology, why demolish them so completely? Why drain a lake? Normal businesses don't do that. You sell the equipment. You repurpose the buildings. You don't erase every trace. The demolitions suggest someone wanted to hide something. That doesn't fit the simple gravity rides explanation. Problem 4. The photographs. Why would someone pay $100,000 for photographs of simple amusement parks? Why would they steal them? If the photos showed ordinary technology, they'd be curiosities, not worth stealing. The theft suggests the photos showed something valuable, something someone didn't want seen. The conspiracy view. Let me present the other side. Some researchers believe the parks had genuine advanced technology that was suppressed. In this view, someone in the 1840s had access to electrical or electromagnetic systems decades before Edison. Maybe they invented it independently. Maybe they found it. Maybe they had help. The parks were demonstrations, proof of concept, ways to generate money from the technology without revealing its full potential. Then something changed. Maybe the technology became dangerous. Maybe someone powerful decided it couldn't be public. Maybe there was an agreement to suppress it. The parks were closed. The evidence was destroyed. The inventors disappeared or were silenced. The technology re-emerged decades later through Edison, Tesla, and others, presented as new inventions. The earlier history erased. Is this true? I don't know. There's no smoking gun, no document that says we suppressed the amusement park technology. But the pattern is suggestive. What powered them? Let's think about what could have powered these parks. If the witness descriptions are accurate, we need something that generates smooth, silent motion for rides, something that produces bright, steady, cool light, something that creates magnetic field disturbances, something that works reliably for decades, something that can be completely dismantled and removed. What fits? Electric motors and lights would fit, but that requires power generation. In the 1850s, batteries existed, crude ones. The Baghdad battery is ancient. Voltaic piles were invented in 1800. Theoretically, a large enough battery system could power a small park. But batteries need to be recharged. With what? Some researchers have suggested atmospheric electricity. Tesla later experimented with drawing power from the atmosphere. Others have suggested underground sources, piezoelectric effects from certain rocks, telluric currents in the earth. These are speculative, unproven, but something powered those parks, if the descriptions are accurate. The timing. Here's a pattern I noticed. All 7 parks closed between 1865 and 1875. That's immediately after the Civil War. The war changed America. The federal government became more powerful. Railroads expanded. Industry consolidated. Big money moved into new territories. Rockefeller, Carnegie, Morgan. The parks closed right as this consolidation was happening. Coincidence? Or were the parks bought out, shut down, and erased by larger interests? If you had a technology that could threaten the emerging electrical industry, what would you do? You'd buy it, close it, destroy the evidence, then invent it yourself, decades later, under your control. I'm not saying this happened. I'm saying it's possible. The Vance question. Cornelius Vance bothers me most of all. He appears from nowhere in 1845, builds an impossible park in 2 years, runs it successfully for 24 years, then vanishes completely. No death record, no grave, no later sightings, nothing. Where did he come from? Where did he go? Where did he get the knowledge to build those rides? Some researchers have suggested Vance wasn't his real name, that he was hiding from something, or hiding something. Some have suggested he was part of a group, other parks, other owners, all connected, a network that operated in secret. Some have suggested stranger things, time travel, other dimensions. I don't endorse those theories, but I mention them because they exist. The simple truth is, we don't know who Cornelius Vance was, and that mystery might be the key to everything else. The Ashworth family. Let me return to where I started. Jonathan Ashworth rode a roller coaster in 1853. He wrote about it. He kept his ticket. His great-great-great-granddaughter Sarah still has that diary. She contacted me after I started researching this topic. She said her family always knew the diary was strange. They didn't understand the descriptions. They assumed Jonathan was exaggerating. Then she saw the photographs from Ohio, the ones that were stolen. She said the rides in the photos matched her ancestors' descriptions exactly. I always thought he was making it up, she told me. Now I'm not so sure. She let me examine the diary, the paper, the ink, the binding. It's authentic. Mid-1800s. No question. Whatever Jonathan Ashworth saw, he saw it in 1853. And he wrote about it honestly. That doesn't mean the technology was what he thought it was. But it means something unusual was happening at Lake Meridian. Something that impressed a grown man enough to write pages about it. Something that stuck with him for the rest of his life. The questions. I've given you a lot of information. Let me end with the questions I still can't answer. What powered the rides at Lake Meridian? What made the lights hum? Who was Cornelius Vance? Where did he go? Why did 7 parks close within 10 years? Why were they all demolished so completely? Why was the lake drained? Who bought the photographs for $100,000? Why were they stolen? What's the connection to the Civil War era? Why does this pattern keep appearing? I don't have answers. But I think these questions matter, because if even part of this is true, it means our history isn't what we think it is. It means technology was suppressed. It means someone decided what we were allowed to know. And it means the truth might still be out there. In a diary. In an old photograph. In the ground where a lake used to be. Waiting for someone to find it. Final thoughts. The forgotten amusement parks of the 1850s shouldn't exist. According to conventional history, the technology wasn't there. But the diaries say otherwise. The newspapers say otherwise. The photographs said otherwise before they were stolen. I don't know what powered those rides. I don't know what made those lights glow. I don't know why the parks were erased. But I know the questions deserve answers. And maybe someday, someone will find a piece of machinery, a fragment of a light bulb, a document that escaped the fires, something that finally proves what was happening in those parks. Until then, all we have are stories and questions and the strange feeling that we're missing something important, something that was taken from us, something we were never supposed to know, something out of place, something out of time. The parks are gone. The questions aren't. These accounts are unverified. I present them for discussion, not as proven fact. If you have information about pre-electric amusement parks, family stories, photographs, documents, anything, I'd like to hear from you. The contact info is below. Thanks for watching.